Hello everyone and welcome to PC Building Simulators section for SimFest. I'm Sam Hills, PC Building Simulators Senior Community Manager, and I'm joined by John Duffill, our design lead. We're going to be jumping into PC Building Simulator, going through some of the things behind what makes a simulator tick. How are you doing today, John?
Good, thanks, buddy. Yeah, very excited to go back through PCBS. It's been a while. Yeah, it's good.
It's interesting being behind a camera again, even with the way things are at the moment. It's like first time in a few years even now, I think. Right?
Yeah. I mean, everyone's getting used to being on camera, right? But hopefully there's nothing too incriminating in my background.
Just put it like a Zoom call. It's fine, right?
Exactly.
Just a work Zoom call. Right, so we're going to be starting with career, like, from the start, right?
Yes, from the beginning. And you have to forgive me if I haven't played this in a while. So we'll see how well I remember what to do. I'm going to go old school. I'm going to go with the OG PC Building Sim office.
Tim's Red Hot Repairs office, right? Yeah. Wow.
Here we are.
Yeah.
It's so small now. Forget
Especially when you don't
small.
have the extra benches yet, right? When you're first starting out and it's like the solitary.
Yeah. But it just in terms of space, it's tiny.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no giant robots in the background of this one, unlike the
No. No, exactly, yeah. I don't think we had to close our bin either, which is disappointing. But yeah, it's all good. Right, see how
how long ago did we make this kind of workshop and everything? Because I remember the open beta, or whatever it was on, I think it's Itch.io when it started out or whatever, right? It's very different looking.
Well, the very first demo on Itch.io was done by Claudio Kiss, the guy who originally came up with the idea. And it wasn't the same space as this, it was just a really plain blank room. That demo was really bare bones, but it's amazing how many, like, if you type in PC Building Sim or even read reviews, how many there are with pictures of the Itch.io demo and not of the actual game. Good.
Yeah, I still see some of that working on like YouTube. I see some of the grey boxes and stuff of like ages past and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, it used to look like that, right? Okay. Yeah. You've worked on this for like a really long time, though, haven't you? You've worked on this since it was in that kind of stage, right?
Yeah, so probably about 5 years or so, I think, roughly. Yeah, it's a long time. And we found it on. So we found it on Itch, and had a play and thought, oh, this is really cool. You know, the Irregular Corporation had just started up. We'd only been going less than a year, I think, and we were looking for various bits and bobs. And the simulation market was something that was growing, and we were really interested in. And it seemed like a perfect fit. I was a massive fan of Car Mechanic Sim. Played that a lot back in the day, and this all just seemed to click and seemed like a really good concept. And so we signed up Claudio, who's at that time was about I think he was 17, I think, when we first signed it, which is nuts, absolutely crazy. But he started developing it, and we started supporting him with that, and then after that it became, it was Claudio's first game, and I think the speed that we wanted to develop at, I think was we decided that it was time to move things forward, basically, or accelerate progress. And so we helped him out. We started taking on more stuff, and then eventually we took it on completely. And Claudio moved into more sort of like a sort of consulting role. We ended up building it with. There was me. There was Stuart Morton, who was the producer. And we hired a guy called Mark Sheard, who I'd worked with quite a lot, and who's a programmer really good programmer, and he we built it, the three of us really, with help, I will say, from our parent company Mediatonic. We got we would steal people regularly from them to do extra bits and bobs, and so we can't say that it was just the three of us, but yeah, it was a very small core team. I think that allowed us to make it sort of the game that it became.
Well, they got really famous making Fall Guys, right?
Well, yeah, exactly right. I can't even remember the rest of that. So yeah, no, it's crazy, and it still amazes me how well it does and how popular it is. And it's really nice to see it bringing. I'd like to say so much joy. I'm not sure some people would call it joy, but yeah, I think a lot of people just really love playing it. And I think it's resonated really well. So yeah, it's good. It's good. It's really cool.
What's the first PC we're building, or what's the first PC we're fixing?
It is a virus scan from Mr. G. Orbin, who's actually a friend of mine. And when I was writing the jobs for this, his was the only name I could think of, so I put it in that. He's very good. That I did so.
So I guess while you're doing this, is a good chance to ask, when you were initially working on this with Claudia and kind of forming Tick with just a few people and building it and everything, did you ever think it was going to be a big enough deal that 5 years later we'd be recording something like this to go on a Steam festival, or was it going to be just a small kind of indie project, did you think?
I think it always had the potential to do well, especially with sim games that were out there at the time. I've already said the car mechanic sim, but like Farming Simulator and stuff like that, and various other sort of sims arrived before we released PCBS, sorry. So I think we always had the capacity to do well. Not this well in any way, shape, or form. I think when we first sort of thought that it was going to do, we'd do almost like an annual release or a biannual release. It was back then when you get in 2017, 2018, 2019, so these versions of these games. And I think it's one thing that's amazing is just how long this iteration of the game has lasted. There have obviously been updates and DLC and various bits and bobs, and we've supported it really well. But yeah, I would have thought we would have done another one by now. So yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing, blows my mind.
Must be weird as well, like even. I'm getting sidetracked from what I was going to ask, but like even looking at like how often you update a game like this, where you're working with computer hardware, which is one of the fastest sort of moving industries really over, for example, say what it might be like working on Train Simulator or something, where I assume there's less new stuff coming out in the train space than there is in we're going to release a line of 10 new graphics cards, and there's going to be a whole new revision of these processors and stuff like next year and so on, right? Like everything is out of date with PCs all the time, like about a month after it's announced,
Yes. I think we're already starting to go the forums, right? You're going to get people complaining that Game Tech is moving on well fast.
Where's 12th gen Intel? It's been 2 days, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think luckily the framework that we created allowed us to update tech very easily, right, and add new things in. And while technology does move forwards, in terms of a game like this, it doesn't change that much. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially when you're choosing your benchmarks, like things get faster, but that doesn't really affect us. I think it's been a challenge for the content guys in terms of new elements have come in that we've had to sort of support, I think.
I know there was some stuff about modular cases like that where I think we were doing the Meshify 2 stuff with Fractal, and it was a challenge over what you might expect as a player, because it was a lot of those cases are made so you can remove nearly everything, and they're very adaptable pieces of kit. But it's not really something that we were doing. I say we, like the industry was doing in cases like 5 years ago. Like things were relatively static, and you bought the case that was the layout where you kind of intended to follow that, and that was about it. That's been interesting for content setup. But how does that compare to, say, sailing sim? Because this obviously isn't your first game, let alone your first simulator game, right?
No, the first sim game we took on was Sailing Simulator, which was a different kind of sim, right? In terms of, I kind of always think there's two types of simulators. There's the ones which are replicating an experience or a thing quite accurately. So you've got your train sims and you've got your flight sims, right, and things like that. And to a certain extent, the more accurate they are, the better. And Sailing Sim was very much sort of in that line. Whereas this is more of an experience simulation to a certain extent, if you see what I mean. This is about running a company, and it's less about being super accurate. It's much more in the ilk of car mechanic sim and that sort of thing, to a certain extent farming simulator as well. It's less sort of parkour. So working on Sailing Sim was interesting, but there was much less gamification. I guess that's the big difference between them, right? We didn't have to make so much gameplay in that, and it was more about letting people do what they wanted to do in real life. So everyone would have got to go and sail on their coast or go past their house, right? And that's how Flight Simulator, everyone wants to fly past their house. Whereas in games like PC Building Sim, it's more you're playing the game to enjoy it, and to actually sort of gamify play a game. So there is a difference.
To build their PC though. Like
yes.
Whenever I speak to people on the forums or on Twitter or something, it's just like, I want to build my PC.
Yeah. But luckily, there's enough ambiguity, I think, in various bits and bobs of PC performance where people can be like, I built my PC and then I benchmarked it, and it's not exactly the same as the one sitting in my office. We give that a wee bit. Whereas people get upset about the placement of buttons in a train. They will get livid about that.
So what are we building right now?
I know this stuff's coming. So these are the ones to buy the next day delivery, and then hopefully that means that when I'm overdrawn already. It's all right, Megacorp. Don't worry. Everything will arrive. So we've got a hard drive install. We've got a graphics card install, and I think we've got some fixing stuff, which I think is probably then scanning stuff, and cleaning dust. Good old cleaning dust.
I wish getting a graphics card was as easy as this in real life at the moment.
Well, to be fair, you might well be able to get yourself like a GTX 970 quite easily.
I've been on like the hardware swap subreddit, and it's like, would you like to buy a 580 for £200? It's like, oh, whatever. Thanks, webcam. Are we gonna stay up?
There we go.
There we go. I wish cleaning dust out was that easy.
Yeah, that I definitely agree with. Originally, we wanted it to be a bit more hardcore in terms of the, having dust bunnies and various bits and bobs. You have to really sort of get in there. A bit more like, power washing simulator. That sort of like pleasing, getting the grime off. But turns out it was not that fun to do it generally, and so we didn't spend a huge amount of time making a really detailed dust extraction simulation.
It's like you have to sit there with like, you got your compressed air and you kind of have like your hoover on the side but not too close, so you're kind of sucking some of it in so it's not just going everywhere, unless you can do it outside, and then that's like cheating, right?
No. And getting stuff off like an actual like component. Like I've just got an old toothbrush now which I just scrub everything with, which I probably shouldn't do, but that's not necessarily good advice. But yeah, really gets that dirt out. It's a light toothbrush.
Just don't include that in the warranty claim, right? Just say like, I was doing nothing, and then like, look, it's perfectly clean. It doesn't even have any dust on it, and it's broken. Right?
Well, I mean, luckily I don't have that problem. All my stuff is so old that warranty is not something I have to worry about. Right, so we're going to virus scan this bad boy, and then this guy is done.
Glad it doesn't take as long as virus scanning in real life either.
Well, originally we did wonder about making it longer. I mean, that's one of the reasons you had sort of multiple benches. You'd have to leave things running. But yeah, I think it just got a bit tedious after a while. So we didn't. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's interesting how little tweaks like that, little changes in numbers, can have big changes in gameplay. But that's just me as a game designer.
I guess like on that front though, on the being a game designer sort of meta comment front, like how did you get into being a game designer? Like, was it something where when you were a kid you were like, you know, one of those people we hear about with the graph paper, like drawing levels instead of going outside, or like were you just super interested in games in general, or like what kind of got you into it?
So I played games a lot as a kid. Started off with an Amiga, parents bought, and yeah, always enjoyed playing them. But then, sort of like, you know, it was very much a hobby. And then went to university, and then after uni, basically I was looking for a summer job and found a QA job. A friend of mine, who's an animator for Lionhead, was then. Got me a job as QA, and suddenly, you know, the concept of being able to like work in games, making games, like was just like, oh my word, this is amazing. So yeah, I was pretty blind to it before I started, and was lucky to find to get a chance. But yeah, so it was QA for about 3 or 4 years, I think, something like that, and then someone I worked with asked if I wanted to try being a designer, so tried being a designer, and yeah, haven't really looked back, to be honest with you. Worked on lots of bits and bobs since then. Did a lot of stuff in mobile, like pre-smartphone mobile, which is really good fun, and did a lot of stuff for Japanese developers. So we did Metal Gear Solid, we did a mobile version of that, back on like a little, you know, phone with buttons.
I'm imagining like an N-Gage or something.
It didn't actually support N-Gage, but it was, I can't remember what the it's Brew, I think it was called, was the type of phone. But yeah, we had crazy, like weird, like, you know, like we have lots of phones that were looked like phones, but also loads of crazy Japanese ones that just didn't look like phones at all, but could still just about run the stuff. But it was really cool, and it was amazing to work with that franchise. We did Resident Evil as well. We did on smartphone. Then we started with we did Call of Duty Zombies on that, and we did Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light, which actually ported to. We didn't port it. We actually rebuilt it, but yeah, it worked on mobile really, really well. And various things like that.
Game actually, yeah.
Yeah, really good fun. Really good fun. So yeah, all that stuff was really good. And then after that, went to worked at Natural Motion on like a big mobile phone game. So on Dawn of Titans, and did the economy balancing for that and various bits and bobs of design for that for a couple of years, and then moved to the regular corporation. Yeah, it's all good. I've completely forgotten what I'm supposed to be doing on this.
This was
right, yes.
Hard drive, right? I think you were swapping your... Yeah.
But have to start putting stuff together.
So what made you get into simulation games then? If you
always
kind of
made
come up
games.
and making all kind of different stuff.
I think I think as soon as the genre started sort of happening, especially the sort of like gamified version, as I said, you know, with I'll keep banging on about it, but the car mechanic tip, it had such a big impact on me just in terms of that sort of pleasing Zen-like gameplay, right? That's that you sort of you just sort of like you potter away, as well as the excitement. Well, excitement, the the ability to sort of like learn more about the thing that you're doing, so you can learn how an engine goes together, or, and in our case, learn how a PC goes together. And, it's just quite an attractive thing. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the language within it. I mean, like the visual language. In terms of the red and the orange and the green, in terms of where pieces go, it's all quite nice to find out where bits and bobs go. You can't really mess up too badly. It's almost like a sort of it's like a bit like a puzzle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm big into my crack is simulation games and like management games. Like that is my crack. And I do have a slight addiction to FIFA online as well. Which I didn't expect. I don't think anyone expected me to get into that, but yeah.
I can't remember the last time I played FIFA sober, but like.
Exactly right. I was exactly the same.
I don't know. It's always like one of those things where it's like when come back with a few friends where someone seems to put on FIFA. I'm not sure why this is a thing in the UK. Is it an international thing? It's definitely like a UK thing. It's either that or like COD Zombies for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you, how do you manage like the accuracy of this whole thing? That like, if you're saying that like, you're really into simulators, you're really into the whole like gamified simulator and so on. Like, where do you draw the line, and how do you I suppose manage that when you're designing it? Like, how authentic do you go for versus how fun do you try and make it? Or where does that intersect?
It's a tricky line to walk, I think. And I think the way that we always found that the best way to do it was by playing it, right? Like you can design the stuff out, and experience helps and all those sorts of things. But until you actually get like this type of game in your hands and having a go with it, you're not going to really understand like how fun it is to play or not, and how much sort of detail to go in. You need to do lots of research, and I think understand what the audience are interested in. Do you know what I mean? Like you go on forums and start reading stuff, and it's quite clear the bits that people like talking about and the bits that people don't really talk about, but are a necessary evil, right? And so the stuff that people like talking about, make sure you sort of include that, and the stuff that people don't necessarily like so much, like that gets a bit tedious, I think we try and avoid. It's definitely a fine line. Got to remember the thermal paste. So it's an interesting one. I mean, it's something that I really enjoy and doing in terms of sort of figuring out what I love. Research, absolutely love research, and then sort of like delving into what's interesting. I think I think there's an element of giving players enough stuff to keep it interesting, right? So it's not just processional and it's not just the same thing each time. I mean, that's one of the great things about PCs is there's so many different components that can go together in different ways. Whereas you look at like going back to my holy grail, right? The car mechanics sim, you can't take a piston from this engine and put it in that engine. You can't put this in that and that on the other. Whereas in this you can. So there's like great scope for allowing complexity and strategy, even if it is just at quite a like high Zen level. It still counts, right? You still get reward from getting it right where you could have got it wrong.
Is that something where you kind of like go through maybe building some of them in real life and like the sticking points, and you decide sort of like how much of that you want to nod to in the game? I know like my PC right next to me has like an AIO in the front that I put tubes down, so there's like a little bit of tension on the tubes, and I remember putting the cooler in was like oh, I need a third hand or something, you know, because like you're trying to hold the bracket, you're trying to hold the actual plate where it's gonna, you know, touch the IHS on the CPU, and you're also trying to like screw it together. So you got like two hands doing this, like one on either side of the case or whatever, and then it's just like, oh, I guess I'll screw this with my mouth or something, right? Because that kind of stuff obviously isn't that fun. That's like the part where a build becomes very stressful.
Where you're trying to use one hand to hold in a component, hold in another component on it, hold a screw on something else, while you're trying to find your screwdriver.
And inevitably the screw falls off somewhere.
Yeah, obviously.
And you're just like, you go from like everything being carefully touched only by the non-conductive bits to, where on earth did that screw? You know.
I think you're much more careful than I am. I'm amazed by the amount that PC can put up with in terms of static and just generally being bent and not cared for. So yeah, it's in terms of like realism in that sort of aspect. You know, if you're gonna go hyper realistic, then well, maybe not so much nowadays, but certainly cutting yourself and just getting blood everywhere is probably the most realistic thing you can.
It's like a tradition, I think, when you build a PC, right? You have to cut your hand somewhere, and you have to have no idea how you did it.
Yeah.
As well, that's the other thing. You put everything together, and you go to like, you know, before you put the side on, obviously, you go to do the first boot because you wouldn't put the side on first, and then like, you realize like, why have I got like a slice on the side of my hand? It's like,
you know what? I don't even know.
Important, right?
Yeah, I never even noticed a slice, to be honest with you. It's normally like, what's that on my really expensive graphics card? And then sort of like searching your hand, and then you're like, oh, I'm bleeding. How long have I been bleeding?
Oh no, that's even worse. I normally just find the cut, like when I go to wash my hands or something later or something, I'm just like, why does that feel? Oh, okay. And I have no idea where it is. So there's some amount of blood in this computer. I've got no idea where that is.
Yeah.
You know.
Blood is conductive, I believe.
Probably, yeah. I imagine it is. Yeah, I think that's pretty important, right? But thankfully, obviously wherever it is, it's not an important conductive place. But I guess going back to our question, how do you decide what of that goes into? Like, obviously not like the cutting yourself on computer cases or something, but how do you decide what of that goes into building a simulator? Like where, you know, the fun side of that, right? Because you got to have nods to some of this stuff where it is supposed to be finicky and it is kind of annoying, but it's the end reward, right? It's the difficulty that leads to the satisfaction or whatever, right?
Yeah. I think that I love including realism and realistic things because you get so much sort of gameplay out of them. But sometimes it's just not practical to do. So, for example, we were thinking about originally having essentially a sort of free, loose component, like physics-based sort of component management, right? So you'd buy parts and they'd arrive here in little boxes, and you pick them up and you could take them out of the box and you'd store them by putting them on your shelves. You know what I mean? And so suddenly part of the game would be keeping your office clean. Yeah. Which some people think is really boring. I personally think it's awesome. But those aspects I think are really nice, you know, and just little bits in terms of like, right, I'm going to build this PC, so I'm going to get all the bits I need. I'm going to come over and I'm going to put them on my bench, and so I'm all organised. And you get some people who are like that. You get some people who are way more chaotic. And I think, you know, keeping things tidy is something I think people weirdly, especially people who quite enjoy games like this, quite enjoy doing. Even if they don't like doing it in real life, like in terms of being organised in the game, it's quite nice. But you know, so it's things like that. But like technically, when we started looking into it and looking at the complexity of it and how painful it would be to sort of implement it properly, then we decided against it. But so yeah, there's lots of things like that. I think in terms of decisions that you make early on. You know, big decisions, big sort of like cuts to realism. and then from those limits that you sort of create, you then start working within those to try and make it as realistic as possible, or as while still being fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Should we go build something in?
Yeah, let's build something cool, right? Let's build something modern, in free build or whatever.
I hope I haven't made too many mistakes in.
This is where it all goes wrong, or it all comes off the rails anyway, right?
Exactly. Where should we build it?
Good question. Overclockers UK, pretty good. All of the workshops are pretty good these days, you know.
Let's go to our good friends Overclockers.
Yeah, I mean they got all the parts anyway, right?
Let's work on my chair.
Yeah. You get in trouble, 8-Pack can come help you build it instead.
yeah. Right. Let's choose this one. So, choose one of these. I like water cooler.
Yeah, like the. I think of more traditional cases probably the ones we'd best do it in at this point. Like these ones, pretty neat. Fast side panels. Yeah. It just gives you lots of space to work with root pipes around things. But you got to take out all the like the strut drive bays, which is a little.
I'm gonna be here for days taking.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like this is, I suppose, one of the first sort of modular things in PCBS, where like the fractal Meshify 2s are a little bit more modular than this, but this is also one of those cases where it's like, oh, what do you want to remove? Well, the entire case.
Yeah. I mean, with this, I have to say, like, I like just taking the whole thing to pieces anyway, and just seeing what goes where, and only putting stuff back in. This is a relatively new thing when we first started, like, making, like, releasing PCBS, like, in terms of, like, the modularity of cases was a relatively new thing. Not in terms of, like, it's always been around, right, in terms of, like, being able to tweak and change a case piece, what you wanted. I think cosmetic modularity, I think, was something.
Like beauty panels and stuff.
Yeah, that sort of thing, and like people starting to actually think of how to make their PC look nice.
I remember buying a Centurion 5 back in 90 something, and that being like the case. I was like so happy with that. And you know that wasn't like a cheap case back then. And then you look at now and like even like a budget case, like a Focus G or something, is like way more just modular and sort of well thought out and flexible than a top of the range case from back then. You know, and I think we're seeing it again a little bit with these kind of things.
Yeah, and I think the amount of design as well that goes into them, right? Like the early cases that were like super like pretty and modular were quite janky. Just didn't like. It was really cool, but like just the way they went together, which wasn't as nice. Whereas nowadays, like even like the most basic PC cases are really well thought out.
Yeah.
I guess everyone's figured this stuff out as they go, right? So you can copy what other people have been making. But yeah, right. Okay, that seems pretty stripped out.
I guess in 10 years we'll look back and say that what we were doing now was dumb, but right now it seems pretty well thought out.
Mm-hmm. Right, let's go for something big, shall we?
Yeah. So it's a Threadripper board, right?
Yep. Obviously, we've got to go Threadripper. It's just insane. Then we'll go for this.
I think like one of our users has one, like one of our Discord mods has one, just randomly. I don't even know what he does with it, he just has it.
Yeah.
I'm like super jealous. I want one just for the weirdness of having one.
yeah, there's definitely something that's quite, appealing about it. And also they hold up seemingly quite well. Like, it's not like they break or anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's like a high-end sports car that you need to look after. But yeah, they are not cheap, and you have to cool them. You have to power them as well. I mean, like, you must double your electricity bill just keeping this thing together.
Did you see the overclocking record someone set with one?
No.
I think he was pushing it over 1,000 watts just through the chip. It's like this was like one of the things I liked posting before, because obviously that's like way extreme. I think that's like liquid nitrogen and everything. But there was I think it was a Tom's article on it. There was some other stuff on it of pushing it, and like the wattage you're pushing through just the processor was very stupid. I think it was like a couple of power supplies hooked up just to nice and even and smoothly provide just for the chip. Bizarre, but hey, if you're going for if you're going for a record like that, if your name's Kingpin or something, and you're just trying to top as many of the benchmarking lists as possible, then by all means, you do you.
Exactly right. I think, and it's quite fun, isn't it? I mean, it's super niche. But I love stuff like that. And again, to some extent, that's people creating their own gameplay from real life computers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I dig that. I think it's fun. Right, we obviously want tons of RGB.
Obviously required.
Let's get
the most important element of high-performance computing.
Yeah, definitely. Fastest speed.
For 3200, I think it's just for 32 gigs, I think it's the 3600s. I think we got 16 gigs that go up to 4800 megahertz as well. But
I'll take it. Originally, when we were looking at this, at the at RAM, we wanted to do RAM packs, sort of like matched RAM. But in the end, it just became such a pain in the backside. Trying to manage multiple components that essentially are one thing in the shop.
Yeah.
And that just it made the inventory just super hard to do. And so in the end we just ended up selling individual sticks. There's things like that in some ways you want to be able to say to the audience, hey, we know about this and we saw it and we wanted to do it. It was just really annoying because of this reason. But obviously
it's much more lenient these days, though, right? Like, it's not like the old, oh, you didn't get this RAM out of literally the same packet, so, like, good luck ever getting that to work well together if you don't just run it at, like, base speed.
Yeah, and, like, memory timings and stuff like that, the dark art of memory timings is something that we've avoided very much on purpose for this, because it's crazy.
So thinking about stuff that I guess doesn't make it into simulations because it's kind of annoying. I have a memory story, or a memory timing story, where
it's a niche story.
I
don't think you'll get to tell this story in many audiences apart from this one. So yeah.
So I was working on a PC, and like with my personal PC, I was running a 2700X at the time. Really happy with the chip, platinum sample, on overclocking it, so that was pretty neat. But no matter what I did, no matter what subtiming I adjusted, no matter how much voltage I put through the DIMMs, as soon as I went past 3000 megahertz on the memory, it just didn't like it. Couldn't do anything. And it was bizarre. I couldn't work out for a really long time. And then I thought, like, oh, maybe it's the memory. So, I run mem tests and all this kind of stuff, nothing, and so on. And it's passing everything, but what would happen is it would crash after playing with it for a while. So I realized that it was the memory controller on the processor just couldn't go any further with it. So even though the chip, the main the chips on the chiplets themselves or whatever, platinum sample happy to clock ridiculously high. Just could not get any more out of the memory controller. And that's the kind of thing where you can be aware of it, but including that when we do Silicon Lottery in game would be very hard.
Yeah.
You know, because it's the niche of the niche knowledge where like that's the forum Google foo that kind of leads you to finding that kind of thing. But yeah, it's hard to translate that.
Yeah, it is.
I think this fits a 240 in the front. Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. Because this is before you could remove. You know, because this is still when people were pretty sure you'd need CD drives, right?
Yeah, this case has got a slot for a CD drive. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a CD drive over there somewhere. I keep meaning to find a caddy for it.
Really?
Yeah, I have a Blu-ray drive from when we thought Blu-ray drives were going to be like the future of how games were going to be delivered before internet speed like quintupled or something. Expensive piece of kit.
Yeah, good times. I miss CDs. I found a whole load the other day, and so I need to get a CD drive actually. Cause it's got loads of old like playlists and stuff. That's the funny thing is nowadays you sort of forget, like with Spotify and stuff like this, your playlists just go with you no matter where you go. But now I'm like rooting through old hard drives and stuff, trying to like, I had that amazing playlist. I can't remember what was on it, and you're like desperately trying to sort of like find it in your old like iTunes library. I suspect a lot of audience will be like, "What are you on about?" Right, where am I up to? I need a power supply.
Something hella beefy for this, so like a 1600, I guess, would be good.
We got platinum.
Yeah, that'll definitely do it.
Oh, you know what stuff to do, don't you?
Oh, you can turn up. You have like the auto cable on, so you're just gonna get like a million cables instantly. Oh, you're gonna just change the cable and then put it.
Yep. Right. Let's put some fun cables.
Easy method.
Quite like clashing stuff, so it might go red. Red and orange, right? People might be like, oh, red and orange don't clash.
Me with my jet black PC and no lights in it. Yeah, clashing stuff. So how much of this do you do in real life when you're making a game like this? Like, for your references, of course, you know, like obviously you need to build a really beefy PC to reference for a game like this, right? It's a lot of cost.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, like some of our manufacturers, like our partners would supply bits and bobs for us, which was really good. And so I got to build a PC, my own PC. EK Waterbox, in fact, were awesome because they were like, yes, all good, like, order whatever you want. So basically I got to go through and just completely water cool my entire PC, which was pretty cool. And rigid. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. But like generally, again, a lot of this stuff you can find out about on the internet. And so in some ways, it's like, yeah, please, can I have all this stuff? Quite often it's like you don't actually need it.
It's like a blessing and a curse, though, right? Like I remember building stuff back when the best resource you were gonna get was someone who's built it before, if you know them locally or something, and then just like actually reading the manual, like that was it.
Yeah. Pretty good job here, I think.
Yeah.
Everything is going together well. Pretty much it, isn't it? We just need some coolant. See, this is what I'm going to find out.
Might need plug-in. Did you plug it in already?
Did I what? Sorry.
Did you plug it in already? Like the.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it should just need some coolant. Gonna slowly go through this giant
Take
leap.
one.
So we're going for purple, red, and orange so far.
Yeah. Sunrise all the way.
Okay. I'm wondering what
Look.
color the lights are going to be, or are they just going to be rainbow?
There'll be rainbow when we first turn it on. That's just the way that it is. Right? Everyone wants rainbow. But right, that looks like we need a.
I
think
needs to
I-
be like
I
a
think-
rear case fan or something? Do you even want one?
Technically, I don't need one, right?
I mean,
Well, I suppose
no,
actually, yeah.
it's probably like about negative airflow anyway, right? Or negative pressure. Not that that's relevant.
Obviously, we need RGB.
Bit of Vardar and a nipple match or something. Yeah, there you go. Those are all the rads.
Right.
Now you just have to put in like 100 beauty panels that may or may not be in the way of pipes.
Missing a cable. Ah.
Oh.
Oh no!
Oh, no. Is that the GPU has to come out?
Yeah, it can't reach. For some reason, I can't reach that. So
Okay.
I can't plug in the I/O.
Okay. I'm hoping that this is about to go somewhat smoothly when that's removed, but now you gotta remove the coolant and then the pipes and then the cables, I guess. And then...
Oh no, there it goes. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.
Wait, what is that? That's
No idea. Nothing to see here.
it's fine.
Right, see, I wouldn't they install the
I
OS?
feel that's never gonna come back to haunt us, whatever that
Okay.
missing cable is.
That red is pretty attractive
Yeah, it's a pretty good red.
in terms of clashing. Let's go in here. While we
Oh gosh.
Start.
Insert RGB.
right, dust filter needs to go back in. How many beauty panels do I think I need? Let's get away with
I don't
none.
know how many beauty panels can actually fit back into the case.
Yeah,
I guess you don't really need the back ones because you can't really see it with the side panel.
I need a top panel. But
Yeah, usually helps. I don't think there was a dust filter for that, so like, I think it's okay.
Ah,
Oh yeah, how many of these are even gonna fit with the
I need a lot of them.
with the pipes? Oh, you need like the main cage thing first, right?
That's the one I want. I
Yeah,
want
that's
the one
never
that
going back on with that pipe right there.
I can't even tell which one it is. This case is insane.
Oh, it's that one, right? The last one? Oh,
Look at
okay.
that.
No, it's
Boom.
all like, okay, yeah, sure.
Close that.
Okay, yeah,
That's
that
looking-
counts, right? Like, it's leave it breezy for the airflow.
I'd say that looks pretty complete, doesn't it?
Yeah, easy assemble. Right, so now you have to do the most obvious thing. right?
Lighting. Right, let's select all lights, obviously, and let's go for like a really like
Like a pink.
slightly aggressive. So what is
Salmon.
that between red and?
Oh, you need
Oh.
to move it. It's on like the white on the hue thing, right at the top.
Okay, that's,
Oh, that's just red. Okay,
yeah, that's the color I'm looking for.
like a neon pink.
Feeling breathe. Whoa,
God.
that's intense. My eyes.
Suddenly, the
Fish.
epilepsy warning. Like, oh,
Fantastic.
okay.
Uh,
That
look at
kind of
that.
goes together with the colors, sort of, somehow.
Yeah, that's hot stuff. That is.
They're all sort of red based, so like, yeah, it works.
And the last thing you remember we need to do now, don't you?
Benchmark it.
Let's benchmark it. overclocking as well, or is that we got time for overclocking?
You can as much time as you want, right?
Hang on.
Enable XMP, turn off brain.
Right. Let's turn on XMP. What do you think we can get away with?
Oh gosh, on this, I have no idea. Like this is, oh god, how much voltage? It's a lot of voltage.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that'll work. Let's try it.
Okay, I mean, if this turns into a brick, then here we go. Oh, I mean,
We're in.
good. So that's
We're in.
something. I like how you didn't install OCCT, so we have no idea like what are the temperatures or anything. Just going for numbers.
I can do that.
Okay. I predict a blue screen, but you know, we'll see.
Right, you're going for blue screen.
I'm
Okay.
thinking blue screen.
We're thinking blue screen.
I'm one of the incremental overclockers, you know, where you do it like a little bit.
I don't have time for incremental overclocking. Right, shall I test it? Or...
Test it, right? Well, hey, if it boots, then it counts, right? That's how overclocking works. I think that's
how Uncle Tim's overclocking works.
Yeah.
Oh, GPU!
Oh.
Hey,
Cool.
there it goes.
1.7 is a lot of voltage. I think you probably.
But I think that was the GPU, not the CPU, is it?
That will be the CPU, surely, right?
Is it not? This is the problem when you overclock everything at once, and then see what happens.
It's like those forum posts in real life. It's like, I overclocked everything and I don't know why it doesn't work. It's like, can you please like dial in your default settings and then do this one at a time? It's like, no. Tell me why it doesn't work.
Right, okay, so CPU temp. Whoa, the CPU temp was holding
95.
alright.
What? Wasn't that 95 with CPU temp?
It's making good TV.
I mean, it's making TV.
Right, what I'm going to do is reset these two.
Oh, and just actually do it one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay, sure, right. I mean, that's
This is how I overclock.
Oh.
Ah, see?
Oh, okay.
That
Maybe
is-
maybe it was. I mean, maybe it was
That
ambient
is
temp, right? Because
stable CPU overclock, that is.
okay.
What it doesn't like then is the dual 3090s are getting a bit toasty.
I mean, if this is real life, I think the memory can already like fry an egg even when it's cooled. So like, you can put it on infinite and then raise the thing at the same time, right? That's a good trick
That's a good trick.
in game.
Power is pretty low. Oh,
Okay. There's probably just the power grid going down from, you know, the Threadripper and 3090s at the same time.
maybe I'll only go up to like. Oh no, you can just whack that up. You always whack that up, right? Let's just try plus.
Sure.
Bam, overclocking. What can go wrong?
It's like the Core 2 overclocking simulator where it's like, I bought this Q6600 and I put the multiplier to like 48. I don't know how to overclock now. I'm being very good. And it's like, oh, okay, cool.
So what I'm going to do then is clearly this is all having a bit of a. Just set that
Are we
back
giving
to-
up on the overclocking journey?
Booyah!
I mean, it's okay. There's two 3090s anyway. I'm sure they can handle 3D mod.
Yeah, if you want them to handle it faster. You want them to barely be able to handle it, right? If I've spent $6 grand, $7 grand on two of them, then I want it to I want them to be working hard.
Like sell your car and buy graphics cards.
I think something's thermal throttling.
Maybe. That's got to be the CPU though, right? Because it was CPU test. It's the first one. Whereas this is GPU.
Yeah, which is it's bossing, to be fair to it.
Yeah. So I guess that Threadripper was a little too toasty. What's the hardest thing, I guess, about making a game like this? Aside from overclocking, apparently.
I think making sure there's enough sort of tactility to get past the the mundane nature of what the game could be. Like everyone CPU score. So it's not a great score, is it? I think in terms of making sure that the game is fun to use and nice to use when you're not using your hands. I think that's one of the hardest things. But as we've been talking about before, the audience have been great in terms of helping us refine it and get it to a good place. I think in terms of that, so it's still a really fun game to play, and it's kind of stood the test of time, amazingly. Are we thermal throttling? Then we might be our frame rate. Our frame rate is dropping. To be fair, the 3900, 3990, sorry, is a beast.
Yeah.
I think all we're showing here is that I don't know how to overclock. Maybe if I just reset it.
Like for the defaults? Sure.
Yeah, let's just factory reset that.
This is where that throttles now as well, right? Because it's just that toasty.
Right, okay. That is it. Line change.
Yeah. They sort of sip voltage on stock. Just a little bit. Okay. Let's see if we can have a CPU temp that isn't like 100 degrees.
70, 80. Ah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, that counts.
Yeah, that's good. Right, off we go. Do it, PC. We'd love to do sort of extreme overclocking one day with this stuff, sort of like the nitrogen stuff.
Yeah, look, that's like the cans in the overclocker's workshop.
Yeah.
Like the giant LN2 cans at the back.
Yeah.
That's I want to do it in real life, but no one wants to fund me doing it yet. I'll have to convince somebody.
But it's so nerdy. So you talk to people about doing this, and they're like, okay, so what do you use? Like, what's it calculating? Like, what's the ranking? And it's like things like calculating pi to X number of digits as fast as you can. And it's just like, oh, okay.
I've rendered this BMW. It's like, I've seen this before. Like,
yeah. The
Oh,
leaderboards are good. I think they're always quite fun. But the thing is, the harder you go with stuff like that in this game, then the more you want to be able to tweak things, because otherwise it's always just going to end up coming down to Silicon Lottery. It's not as simple as just sticking in bits and bobs. You have to sort of think it through. Look at that. That's a good score. I'll take that.
I guess before we get into plaster dipping motherboards and how many paper towels you have to wrap them on, I guess we'll wrap up there. So I'm not sure who's after us in the SimFest kind of like calendar, but thanks for watching. It's been fun. It's been great to jump in on some of this stuff and to hear some design musings. So thanks for that, John. It's really cool.
Anytime, always happy to nerd out on game design.